On the 1094th day of being Mrs. Bradley, I asked Tyler for a divorce. A flicker of confusion crossed his face, but he quickly regained his usual aristocratic composure. "As you wish," he said nonchalantly, as if we were discussing whether to change the milk on the breakfast table. He didn't even bother to ask why. On the 1095th day, I gently sent him and the children off as if nothing had happened, then left the Bradley household for good. Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. At first, Tyler Bradley and his family thought I was just throwing a tantrum. But slowly they began to notice something was amiss. The first to kick up a fuss was the younger son, Joe Bradley. Initially, he was happy that the mom who used to fuss over everything had left. But on the day of the school fete, his dad forgot to tell the nanny to prepare biscuits for him. When his classmates gathered around, wanting to taste the homemade teddy bear biscuits his mom used to bake, and all he could offer were store-bought ones, he suddenly realized that perhaps his mom wasn't so useless after all. The second to feel the absence was Bill Bradley. He had always despised this woman who had taken his mother's place through underhanded means. Yet on that stormy night, as he leaned against the door, unable to hear the soft lullaby from the other side, he suddenly felt panicked. The old Mrs. Bradley was the third to notice. The family doctor told her that her blood pressure had risen again, and this time she needed to start medication to control it. She suddenly realized it had been over 2 weeks since she'd eaten the healthy meals Jennifer used to prepare for her. Even Nora Bradley, Tyler's married sister, began to casually inquire when he would bring his wife back home. The Bradley family started to mention me frequently in front of Tyler, with some even advising him that a man should be magnanimous, and that occasionally bowing his head to appease his wife wouldn't cost him his dignity. Finally, the old Mrs. Bradley couldn't hold back anymore. At the breakfast table, she gave Tyler an ultimatum. "Tyler, I know you're a man who values his pride, but a married couple shouldn't be estranged. If it's inconvenient for you to ask Jennifer to come back, let this old woman talk to her." Tyler's already aloof face grew colder. They all thought it was his arrogance preventing him from reaching out to me. But in fact, he had called on the second day after I left. However, he had been blocked. That number, which he had never dialed in 10 years, was now unreachable when he finally decided to call. Thinking about this, the man's expression soured further. His gaze swept over his 2 sons, who, though silent, were looking at him expectantly. A sense of helplessness welled up from the depths of his heart. "Mom, don't worry about Jennifer and me." "How can that be? You have 2 children. How can this woman be so irresponsible?" For the first time, he found his mother's nagging so irritating. "If you can find her, then go ahead," he shouted, turning to leave. He belatedly realized that Jennifer had already affected his emotions to this extent. The 3 at the table looked at each other, bewildered. The old Mrs. Bradley was the first to take out her phone. "I'd like to ask her if she still wants this family." But the other end was a mechanical female voice. "The number you have dialed is not in service." The 2 boys couldn't sit still either and began dialing that number. But the results were the same. This time, it was Bill who spoke up first. "She never fails to answer our calls. Could something have happened to her?" Tyler's hand paused on the doorknob. Those crime scenes flashed through his mind like a slideshow. His heart suddenly panicked terribly. "Alex, my wife is missing. Please help me report it to the police." "Wait, contact a few private detectives first. Investigate discreetly. I'll send you the details later." Tyler painfully pinched the bridge of his nose, forcing himself to calm down. I settled in a small town in the southern, renting a quaint cottage with a garden. At this moment, I'm lounging in a wicker chair, enjoying the rare shade on a summer afternoon. The town is quite livable, with pleasant scenery all year round. I'm planning to open a flower shop here. I used to dislike impractical things like flowers and plants. But during the 3 years of being Mrs. Bradley, I was forced to develop a taste for such refinements. Tyler Bradley found me on the 3rd evening. His usually impeccable attire showed a rare flaw. Following my gaze, his eyes fixed on the button about to come loose from his cuff. A hint of embarrassment crossed his typically stern face. "Why didn't you come home?" he asked coldly. I looked up at him in surprise. "As your soon-to-be ex-wife, Mr. Bradley, I don't think I have any reason to be in your house anymore." Oddly enough, it was the first time I saw anger on Tyler's face. "Is our marriage, our family, just a game to you?" I was starting to dislike his attitude, and my face showed impatience. "On the 1094th day, I asked for a divorce, and you agreed. Have you forgotten?" Tyler was clearly not a good argument opponent, he always missed the point. "Did you just say the 1094th day?" His face showed confusion. I realized I had misspoken. Although I was prepared to tell them the truth. Fearing the Bradley family might cling to me, I still tried to gloss over it. "Mr. Bradley, we can go to the court anytime that's convenient for you." He frowned, and after a while said, "Everyone's been struggling to adjust without you these past few days." I smiled indifferently, "They'll adapt soon enough." Tyler sighed softly. "Mom's blood pressure has gone up, the doctor has suggested medication. Bill's grades have slipped, his teacher says he's falling asleep in class." I interrupted him. "Mr. Bradley, that's your mother and son. What does that have to do with me?" The man seemed not to have expected me to say such a thing. His handsome brows furrowing even more. "Jennifer, I think we might need to talk. If there are any misunderstandings, it's best we clear them up quickly." I suddenly felt mischievous and mimicked Tyler's usual expression. Saying, "Tyler Bradley, I don't need to explain every decision to you. Some things you might not understand even if I explained. I made a request, you agreed. We both get what we want, isn't that good?" His expression changed again. How strange, in 3 years as his wife. I've seen more changes in his facial expressions today than in all those years combined. "What about Joe then? Your own son, are you just going to abandon him?" Hearing this name, the heart in this body still ached involuntarily. I remembered Jennifer's last days. And how this child she worried about most could hurt her so deeply. Precisely because of their blood connection. The little boy, 4 or 5 years old, loudly expressed his wishes in his childish voice. "Daddy, I don't want a bad woman as my mummy. I want to be Ms. Yates' child like my brother." When little Joe said this, all the Bradleys were present. Bill looked at Jennifer with a challenging expression. Tyler probably wanted to scold him, but was stopped by old Mrs. Bradley and Nora, who said, "Children say the darndest things, how can adults take offense?" At that time, I thought, of course there's no need to take offense at a child. But what about the adults who coached and induced him? But Jennifer said nothing at the time. She helped little Joe put on his outdoor clothes, carefully packed the gifts to be taken to the Yates house, and then stood at the door with the household staff to see the family off to Tyler's ex-wife's house for Bill's birthday. Only I could see, in that moment of turning away, Jennifer's reddened eyes. As these thoughts crossed my mind, my expression grew cold. The divorce agreement clearly states that. "I don't want any of the Bradley family's money, property, or people," I said firmly. "You." Tyler Bradley was caught off guard by my sudden outburst. After stammering for a moment, he finally said, "Jennifer, what's wrong? We're family. You need to tell me what's happening so we can solve it together." "Family?" I savored the word with a hint of mockery. He rarely included me as part of the Bradley clan, even though he introduced me as Mrs. Bradley to others. The truth was, there was always a clear line between me and the rest of the family. What was I in the Bradley household? Probably just a high-class housekeeper. Old Mrs. Bradley, Bill, Joe, Nora, even Tyler's ex-wife, they were all considered family. But not me. "Mr. Bradley, did you ever truly consider me family?" I asked with a sarcastic smile. "If I'm not mistaken, being a Bradley means owning at least 3% of Bradley Corp shares. Your ex-wife Sophie Yates and your brother-in-law David both have that, don't they? So let me ask you, as your current wife, as part of your family, where are my Bradley Corp shares?" Tyler's hand clenched into a fist, a habit when he felt pressured. "Jennifer, you're different from them. You don't understand the company's affairs," he said. "Is that so? Does owning Bradley family shares mean I have to attend board meetings and give orders?" Do I need to become a professional manager first? I retorted. He was taken aback by my sharp words, a fleeting look of embarrassment crossing his face. Jennifer, I didn't know this mattered to you. When we get back, I can discuss giving you shares with the others, he offered. I scoffed. Don't bother, Mr. Bradley. You've missed the point again. I'm not negotiating with you. I'm telling you that I'm tired of being Mrs. Bradley. I don't want anything. I just want a divorce. Please take your whole family and get out of my life. Tyler's face turned an ugly shade of red. Perhaps being in a position of power for too long, he had never been so directly rejected before. He turned and left abruptly, leaving with a final remark. See you at the court at 10 a.m. tomorrow. When Tyler arrived home, he was too frustrated to speak, wanting only to retreat to his study. But Joe, still too young to read the mood, bluntly asked, Dad, can you bring Mom back? I want Mom to take me to school and read picture books with me. His elder son also stood up. Dad, is she all right? He looked up at the three people who should have been in bed by now, but were waiting for him because of that woman. His frustration grew. He thought to himself, you're all eagerly waiting for that woman to come back. But in her mind, you're just annoying burdens. The man opened his mouth, unsure how to tell them that he was getting divorced, that the woman would never return. She's doing well, running a flower shop in a small town down south. He answered his elder son's question, as it was the easiest to address. Then Dad, bring Mom back quickly. Joe said innocently, suddenly feeling drained. And thinking of the woman's attitude, he steeled himself and said, she won't be coming back. We're going to the court tomorrow to get divorced. What? This time it was the old Mrs. Bradley. How can you be so irresponsible? Everything was fine. Why are you getting divorced? Mom, he called out, don't worry about it. Remembering the woman's disdainful attitude towards his family, he added bitterly. Besides, her position as Mrs. Bradley was never legitimate. Now that she's come to her senses and stopped clinging to our family, it's for the best. The old Mrs. Bradley seemed taken aback by his words. And after a long pause, she finally said, Tyler, dear, she has been a devoted wife to you all these years. Perhaps you shouldn't hold that incident against her anymore. Tyler, however, continued as if venting the frustration he had experienced earlier that day. It's better if we divorce. Someone with her character shouldn't be allowed to negatively influence Bill and Joe. Mom, you should think of Joe as well. If she continues to live with him, how painful will it be for Joe? When he eventually learns that his mother is a woman who would stop at nothing to climb the social ladder? He was about to continue when the old Mrs. Bradley interrupted him. That's enough, Tyler. Stop talking. In Tyler's memory, this was the first time his mother had ever defended Jennifer in front of him. Before he could react, tears welled up in the old Mrs. Bradley's eyes. Tyler, I should have told you this long ago, but, oh dear. You've reminded me today that I shouldn't have let my selfish desires cause a rift between you all and Jennifer. The old lady seemed to struggle with what she was about to say. Taking a moment before continuing, you've always resented Jennifer for drugging you at that party years ago, which forced you to marry her. She then turned to her beloved eldest grandson, Bill Bradley. Bill, you've also harbored resentment towards her all these years. Believing she ruined your parents' chance of reconciliation, haven't you? That's why, no matter how kind or caring she's been to you, you've always been cold towards her, never even calling her Mom. The truth is, you don't know that she didn't drug Tyler. I did. The whole incident was a misunderstanding, and Jennifer was a victim too. All three of them stared wide-eyed, with Bill even feeling a slight tremor in his body. He had indeed hated that woman, believing she had drugged his father and ruined any chance of his parents getting back together, destroying his hope of ever having a complete family. But if it was all a misunderstanding, then everything he had done to that woman over the years, he couldn't bear to think about it any further. The old Mrs. Bradley continued. Back then, I actually wanted to bring Tyler and Bill's mother back together. Your divorce seemed hasty, and you still got along well afterwards. I knew you were both stubborn and unlikely to make the first move. so I thought I'd give you a little push. At that Christmas party, I had prepared the drug. I originally intended to slip it into Tyler and Bill's mother's drinks. But by some twist of fate, the glass meant for Bill's mother was drunk by Jennifer instead. At first, I thought this woman might have known something, and deliberately took advantage of the situation. But later, when I happened to discuss this with the maid, we realized that we had made a mistake in our haste and given the drink to the wrong person. By then, Jennifer had already given birth to Joe. I selfishly worried that having her own child might make her treat Bill poorly. I thought that if she carried this stigma, she would at least pretend to love Bill, even if she didn't truly feel that way. So I've kept this secret until today. Grandma, Bill called out, his voice bitter. He stiffened his neck, as if clinging to his last bit of stubbornness. Then why didn't she explain herself? Why did she willingly carry this burden for so many years? She did explain, but none of us believed her, Tyler said with difficulty. He suddenly remembered an incident from long ago, when he had too much to drink and pressed himself against Jennifer. She pushed him away, saying she didn't want to. That day, he had been upset about something at work. And seeing the rejection in Jennifer's eyes, he instinctively said, "Isn't this what you've always dreamed of? Now that you've got what you wanted, why are you being coy?" He clearly remembered how Jennifer's eyes darkened as she said, "Tyler Bradley, I may like you, but I've never schemed against you, let alone wanted to sleep with you." He had only sneered and continued his advances on Jennifer. At that time, he didn't believe her, nor did he care about her feelings. Over the years, who in their family had ever cared about Jennifer? In their hearts, they had long ago convicted her of her supposed crime and labeled her as despicable. Only Joe, in his innocence, cautiously asked, "Grandma, do you mean Mom didn't ruin Bill's mom and dad's relationship? Mom isn't a homewrecker?" Bill could no longer hold back. He hugged his younger brother tightly and said, "Joe, all those things I told you before. No, even the things we heard Grandma and Aunt Nora say about your mom, they were all wrong. We all lied to you. Your mom isn't a homewrecker, nor is she a bad person. She's very, very good." Bill couldn't continue. His voice choked with emotion, unable to utter another complete sentence. The next day, as I approached the court, I could see the entire Bradley family from afar. I couldn't understand why they needed such a grand gathering just for a divorce. As I drew closer, Joe rushed up and hugged my legs. "Mommy, where have you been? Joe missed you so much." This child had never been particularly affectionate towards me. The Bradleys had taught him to be well-mannered and reserved. But he never showed any warmth towards me, his own mother. In the past, such an affectionate gesture would have thrilled me. But now, on the 1095th day, I no longer needed to put on a facade for this family. I turned to Tyler. "Your son is being quite improper. Aren't you going to do something about it?" I saw the expressions on the Bradleys' faces change. Tyler, perhaps fearing his son would be upset, quickly stepped forward and pulled the child away. "Jennifer, Joe just wants to be close to his mother. He hasn't done anything wrong. Is that so?" I couldn't help but crouch down mischievously, looking into Joe's eyes, and said, "But how can a wicked woman like me be fit to be Joe's mother?" Joe's eyes instantly welled up with tears, though he tried hard not to let them fall. "Jennifer, I know you've been through a lot these past years, but you can't treat Joe like this. He's just a child." Tyler's voice was filled with suppressed anger. I stood up, indifferent. "It's fine. Let's just get the divorce papers sorted quickly. And I won't stand in the way of you finding him a good stepmother." "Jennifer!" This time it was the old Mrs. Bradley. She had always liked to play the role of the grand matriarch in front of me. Whether it was tea being too cold or too hot, or dishes being too oily or bland, the old lady never hesitated to try every method to wear me down. I remember one winter when the old Mrs. Bradley had heard about some special mince pies and asked me to make them for her. I baked batch after batch from morning till night, but she was never satisfied. Later, when the kitchen staff had gone home, I dozed off at the table and overheard the servants talking. "This old lady is really pushing it too far. How many batches has the Mrs. May now? Oh, I know. It's not about the pies at all. It's clearly about the person. How did I get through that time? Ah, yes. In the dead of winter, I drove alone to the countryside, visiting 5 or 6 villages until I finally found the traditionally dried fruits the old lady wanted. Only then did she let up. I looked at the old Mrs. Bradley. Please spare me. I'm no longer worthy of your teachings as your former daughter-in-law. Wait until your son finds you a new one, then you can throw your weight around again. The Bradleys seemed shocked that I, who they had always treated like a pushover, could be so assertive. The old Mrs. Bradley was too stunned by my disrespect to even get angry. Just staring at me blankly. Jennifer, child, what's gotten into you? We're family. Don't talk about leaving, it's not right. I was getting tired of their cloying attitude. Tyler, we agreed yesterday. Let's go in and get the papers sorted. From now on, we'll go our separate ways. I started walking towards the service hall, but Tyler grabbed my arm. What? I turned back impatiently. Jennifer, don't be like this. You're not thinking straight, and there's been a misunderstanding between us. Don't act rashly. It was rare for him to speak to me so gently, and at the court of all places. I turned and looked at him seriously. Tyler, are you feeling all right? Isn't getting rid of a lowly woman like me without spending a penny what you've always dreamed of? What are you hesitating for now? Tyler's brows furrowed deeply as he spoke. Jennifer, I learned some things yesterday. I admit I've wronged you these past years. Will you give me a chance to make amends? No need. Let's just consider the past as if I was bitten by a dog. As long as I don't have to face your family anymore, I'll be grinning even in my dreams. Jennifer! Tyler's face flashed with embarrassment. Let's go home first. There are some things I need to explain to you. His attitude was firm, looking as if he would have someone tie me up and take me if I refused to go with him. As it happened, I also had some things I wanted to clarify with them. In the Bradley family study, Tyler's demeanor was unusually pleasant. Jennifer, about the incident at the party, we misunderstood you. I only found out yesterday that you were a victim in that situation too. I'm sorry. He spoke sincerely, but I couldn't help but laugh coldly. You found out? From where? And if you know I was wrongly accused, who was the real culprit then? Tyler turned away awkwardly, while the old Mrs. Bradley's face turned bright red. Well? Weren't you saying you knew the truth and wanted to clear up the misunderstanding? Jennifer, don't be so aggressive. What happened back then was a misunderstanding. No one wanted things to turn out this way. A misunderstanding? With just one word, misunderstanding. You think you can erase the reputation of being willingly debased that I've carried? Slaving away for your Bradley family for 10 years? You think one misunderstanding can wipe away all the cruelty your entire family has shown me? Tyler Bradley, you don't really think that by marrying me. You've bestowed upon me some great blessing, do you? And now you're telling me your whole family misunderstood me, and have decided to treat me well from now on, expecting me to fall to my knees in gratitude? Wake up, the Victorian era is long gone. My rapid-fire retorts left Tyler speechless. If you're smart, you'll divorce me quickly. If you want to drag this out, that's fine too. I've got nothing to lose. As I was about to leave, the old Mrs. Bradley's aged voice spoke up. Jennifer, we, the Bradley family, have wronged you. It was this foolish old woman who made a mistake, drugging you and then fearing the blame from my children and grandchildren, causing you to suffer for so many years. This old woman is laying bare her wrinkled face to apologize to you. Jennifer, you loved Tyler so much, and what's more, you have little Joe. He's still so young, can you bear to leave him? Mommy. Joe's cry rang out at the opportune moment. I turned and held out my hand to stop the little boy who was about to run over and hug me. If you had said these words to Jennifer Langley 3 years ago, she probably would have fainted from happiness. But now, I just find your whole family disgusting and hypocritical. Well, since we've come this far, I might as well tell you the truth. I looked at the confusion in the Bradley family's eyes, and took out my newly issued ID card from my pocket. Bonnie? Tyler read out the name on it. You changed your name? As you can see, I'm not Jennifer Langley. My name is Bonnie. About 5 years ago, I was in a car accident. When I woke up, I found myself in Jennifer's body. I saw how she was enslaved and abused by all of you, especially you. My gaze turned to Bill Bradley, my tone frigid. You're truly the worst child I've ever met. Bill's body trembled slightly. I couldn't be bothered with him and continued. This situation lasted for 2 years. One day, Jennifer said to me, "Bonnie, I can't go on anymore. I'm giving you my body. Please, will you help me look after them for 3 years?" It was then that I realized her depression had become so severe it had manifested physically. And she had begun to have self-destructive tendencies. She knew she could no longer fulfill her role as your wife. But Joe was too young and couldn't be without a mother's care. So she came up with this deal with me. I paused, looking at the varied expressions of everyone present. What? Don't believe me? Think I'm telling a story? I threw a pile of medical records on the table. Take a good look. See how your family drove Jennifer to her death. None of you should ever appear in front of me again. To be honest, if it weren't for my deal with Jennifer, I wouldn't want to spend even a second with any of you. Not a single decent person in this family, from the oldest to the youngest. I left the Bradley house without any regret. The old Mrs. Bradley's face was filled with fear. Tyler, is what she said true? Is Jennifer a ghost? Will she come back to haunt us? She trembled as she hugged Bill. Tyler, should we find a priest to perform an exorcism? At this moment, Tyler's heart was a mix of emotions. He knew his family didn't like Jennifer. But he never imagined their dislike and mistreatment had driven her to the point of suicide. Mom, Tyler managed to utter with difficulty. There are no such things as ghosts. Jennifer might just be ill. I'll consult with a specialist about her medical records. He fled the room, his mind reeling from Jennifer's words. It dawned on him that in her heart, she truly despised their family. This woman, whom he had always looked down upon and considered a stain on the Bradley name, actually viewed them as the most disgusting and ugly people in the world. He worked efficiently and soon obtained a preliminary diagnosis from the doctor. According to the medical records, Jennifer developed depression shortly after giving birth to Joe. However, none of us noticed it at the time. Later, probably as a form of self-preservation, she developed a second personality called Bonnie. Tyler explained with difficulty to his mother and eldest son. This Bonnie personality is completely different from Jennifer's primary one. She doesn't love me and dislikes everyone in the Bradley family. Jennifer's primary personality must have been aware of Bonnie's hostility towards the Bradleys. So she never allowed Bonnie to take control of her body. But Tyler swallowed the lump in his throat and continued after a long pause. Later, her symptoms became more apparent: anxiety, insomnia, trembling. In the end, after Joe nearly witnessed her suicide attempt, she became frightened. This son she loved so deeply. She couldn't bear to imagine the psychological trauma he would suffer if he were to find her dead one day. But at that time, no one was there to help her. We, her so-called family, didn't even notice her suffering. No, how could we not have noticed? We just got used to ignoring her, belittling her, and gradually pushing her towards the edge. Actually, if she had left us then and found a better environment, she could have recovered. But she didn't. I guess it was because she couldn't bear to leave Joe. She made a deal with Bonnie, letting Bonnie take her place to accompany Joe as he grew up, at the cost of her own permanent disappearance. When Tyler reached this point, his voice was too hoarse to utter a single syllable. He pressed his clenched fist against his lips, suppressing his sobs. He remembered how Bonnie had always emphasized the 1095th day. 3 years, that was the 3 years Jennifer had exchanged with her own life. What had they done? He hadn't been unaware of his eldest son's cruelty towards her. The dead insects left in her room. The deliberate destruction of her painstakingly made handicrafts. And even pushing her into the outdoor pool shortly after she had given birth to Joe that winter. Looking back at each incident now, if any other family member, or even a stranger, had been treated this way by his son, he would have scolded the boy and made sure he learned his lesson. But with Jennifer, he had turned a blind eye. watching as his son's pranks became increasingly vicious. He had even thought to himself that this was the consequence of her scheming to marry him. He looked at his mother, a woman who, though not particularly wise, had always been kind and gentle. Yet it was this same old lady who could empathize to the point of tears with the slightest hardship of others, who had treated Jennifer with such bitter sarcasm. When Joe was just learning to speak, he had noticed his mother deliberately calling Jennifer a homewrecker in front of the child. Later, they did even worse things. His mother intentionally kept Joe away from Jennifer, scolding her in front of the child, stripping her of all dignity in her son's eyes. After all, when Jennifer had married into their family, she had been good to all of them. She remembered everyone's preferences, was filial to his mother, cared for and protected Bill, and even had a child with him. How could they enjoy her devotion while being so cruel to her at the same time? "Dad, please stop," Bill was the first to break down. "It's not true. She won't disappear. She's so resilient. No matter how much I tormented her, she never got angry with me. How could she disappear?" Bill cried, but Tyler felt no sympathy for him this time. They were all sinners, all deserving of the condemnation of their conscience. "My flower shop is finally open. Every day, I visit my garden to admire the vibrant blooms. When sunlight streams through the greenhouse glass, filling the room, my mood instantly brightens. Our small town attracts quite a few tourists, and sometimes my garden welcomes visitors. I love brewing tea and listening to interesting people share their experiences. Once, I had just bid farewell to a retired couple who had traveled to over 20 countries. Their amusing anecdotes about language mishaps left me in stitches. As I turned around, I saw Tyler Bradley with his two sons. My expression immediately turned cold. As I moved to close the door, Tyler reached out to stop me. "Jennifer, we've come to apologize today," he said, his face etched with sorrow. His two children looked equally dejected, as if they'd lost their mother. I couldn't bear to look at them for another moment. "Your Jennifer died 3 years ago. If it weren't for me, the grass on her grave would be taller than your son's by now. And you've only just thought to apologize?" "Mummy," Joe rushed forward, clinging to my leg. "Mummy isn't dead." "Mummy, don't you want Joe anymore?" I glanced at the child, the harsh words I'd been about to utter dying in my throat. "Be good, Joe. You should live with your father from now on." I pushed him away, about to close the door when I suddenly heard another mum. It was Bill Bradley. I yanked the door open, my gaze as sharp as a knife as I looked at him. "Shut up. How dare you call her Mom?" Bill seemed frightened by my outburst, and even Tyler tried to step between us. I approached him step by step, then said, "You, the one who drove her to her death, what right do you have to call her Mom?" The boy stood frozen in shock. "How did it feel to dissect her goldfish with your own hands? Was it wonderful? Did you feel a sense of achievement?" Hiding in the shadows, watching her suppress her grief, seeing the light in her eyes slowly extinguish? "You're quite the little hero, aren't you? Killing her last bit of hope with your own hands and then placing it on her pillow. Were you happy?" Tyler came to pull me away. "Jennifer, that's enough. He's still a child." "A child?" "Oh yes, he's your precious Bradley child, isn't he?" He knew his stepmother wasn't welcome. Knew that no matter how cruel he was to her, no one would stand up for her. "So your good son, when Jennifer was at her most helpless and in the most pain, destroyed her last will to live." I didn't know, I really didn't know she was ill. I didn't know the goldfish meant so much to her. Bill broke down in tears. "You knew. How could you not know?" I glared at him fiercely. "Didn't you know her situation in the Bradley house? Called Mrs. Bradley, but not a single person respected her or cared about her feelings. Even the clothes and jewelry in the dressing room were just lent to her temporarily to keep up appearances. Her depression was so severe then. She tried to save herself, wanted to keep a pet of her own. To keep her company every day, to listen to her talk. But in your Bradley house, that place that devours people, what was she allowed to keep? Cats and dogs were out of the question, of course. She could imagine that if she brought home a dog or a cat, Bill would find some reason to kill it the very next day. After much thought, she secretly kept a fish in her room. Silent, harmless, unnoticeable by anyone else. But even then, your good son wouldn't leave her alone. He snuck into her room, cruelly dissected the two fish, and even left the corpses on her pillow. Tyler, tell me, isn't he your good son? Isn't he the fine grandson raised by the Bradley family? I couldn't help but laugh, and as I laughed, my face grew cold with tears. Tyler fled with his two sons in tow. Later, I received divorce papers signed by Tyler. He gave me a lot of money, almost half of his fortune. After that, during every Christmas and summer holiday, I would see Joe. He would stand there at a distance, sometimes looking at me, sometimes at my flower shop, but never coming inside. I suppose he knew that I didn't want to see any of the Bradleys again, including him. Epilogue. My name is Bill Bradley. For the first 15 years of my life, I hated Jennifer Langley. The following decades were spent atoning for that hatred. On the day Dad took Joe and me to apologize to her, just as she was about to close the door without even looking at me, I inexplicably called out Mom. It was that word Mom that condemned me to live the rest of my life in guilt. That was the first and last time I ever called her Mom. From that moment on, this woman who had loved me for 10 years never gave me another chance to address her that way. When we got home that day, Dad gave me a severe thrashing. The belt stung as it hit my skin, but I felt it wasn't enough. What was this pain compared to the hurt I had caused her? Later, I cried. Dad knelt down and cried with me. He said it wasn't my fault, that he was the real culprit. Jennifer had died from his coldness and neglect. He was the one who truly deserved to die, to atone. After that day, everyone changed. Grandmother said she was going to a monastery in the hills to find peace. Dad didn't stop her. The day Grandmother left, she tried to hug Joe with tears in her eyes, but he pulled away. I knew it broke her heart, but this was the consequence of our sins. Joe changed too. He became quiet and stopped clinging to me. I knew I was one of the people he hated, the one who made him lose his mom. Dad changed as well. Though he still worked, ate, and slept normally, the ease and contentment never returned to his face. Once, I saw him burning Jennifer's diaries in the garden. He said they were too painful, that it wouldn't be good for Joe to see them later. When he finished burning them, I saw him cough up blood. I changed too. I lost the right to be a child. Dad and my little brother became my responsibility. Everyone praised me for growing up, for becoming a man of character like my father. But I knew the truth, I wasn't a man of character. I was Jennifer's murderer. I never saw Jennifer again after that, though Dad would take Joe to see her every holiday. They would watch her from afar, checking if she was doing well, if she was happy. Oh, and her flower shop later became a guest house. Dad said she met many people there, able to chat with folks from all over the country. Her business was relaxed, she closed for half the year to travel with friends. So I imagined that away from the Bradley family, she was truly happy. She was no longer anyone's wife or mother. She was finally free to be herself.